Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 presented by Stakes. We are doing power rankings for SEC football heading into week 6 action. Blake, let's start at the bottom. Vanderbilt was off. The Commodores were 13 last week, but Missouri's near miss combined with South Carolina's win knocked the Commodores to the basement. Vandy with the game this coming week against Ole Miss. 13, this was close. We have South Carolina at 13, Missouri at 12, based on, hey, when you darn near beat the defending national champions, yeah, we believe in moral victories, sure. So we're going to go Carolina 13 and Missouri 12.
It's wild, isn't it? Because last week our composite staff rankings, everyone dropped Missouri to the bottom. And now it's like they almost beat Georgia. Like, all right, let's move those guys up a couple spots. But like you said, these power rankings we do for fun. Like it's kind of entertaining to go through these every week because it is kind of funny to think about how you could justify a couple of these different things. But yeah, I mean, look, you got to give them, I think, a little bit of a nod up based on that. I know, Chris, you kind of pointed out, how does South Carolina drop? But look at South Carolina with the turnover numbers you talked about with them.
-9.
Yeah, so like it's something. But you know what? For this week, we're going to give Missouri a little bit of a boost up here in the rankings because, look, their defense, as we said, have put themselves in a position to win the past 2 games. They just have not been able to capitalize on that. And again, we'd having a much different discussion about them. So nothing against South Carolina, but I do think it's fine for Missouri to get the bump up here a couple spots for this week.
I misspoke. South Carolina is not -9 in turnovers. It's -6. But you know who is -9?
Who's that?
That's our number 11 team, the Auburn Tigers. Let's just hold this here for a minute. Let's say Auburn holds on and beats LSU. Then what in the world would you have done with Auburn in the power rankings? That would have been tough. Thankfully, Auburn spared us the tough decision. I think Auburn's been competitive enough now. Other than that Penn State game, which it got blown out. I mean, near misses. Well, I keep calling the Missouri game a near miss. Auburn won that game. It did not feel like it.
They didn't really win that game, but yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, Chris.
I don't know how you can really put Auburn any lower than 11 or any higher than 11.
But think about that. The fact that we're having that discussion of, it's like we can't really put Auburn any lower than 11, but we can't put them any higher than 11. Auburn fans hearing that are just not happy. The fact that we're playing the what if game and we are week 6 power rankings and Auburn is still sitting right here at number 11. So the fact that they just can, the second half, some of these games, like it's just been, we've just seen, and to them to give up some of those leads, like we talked about in the Auburn Georgia game, a lot of frustration for Auburn fans. So the fact that they're still here in the double-digit range, not ideal.
Yeah. Auburn made it easy for us at 11. These next 2 teams have not.
Yeah.
We've got Texas A&M at 10, Florida at 9, and a lot of debate on that. Because A&M, as you pointed out, did beat 2 top 15 teams in a row. They were top 15 at the time. Now, I think both of them are going to wind up being overranked by the time the season is over. Florida did, people almost forget, beat Utah. And Florida's improved a little bit the last couple of weeks. But both these teams have been all over the place. Anyway, we settled at A&M 10 and Florida 9.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do with these 2 teams, honestly, because I think, like you said, it's, a couple of Florida's wins. I don't know what to make of them, right? Coming off the Eastern Washington win. But it feels like they're trending in the right direction after playing pretty well, as we said, for the most part, I thought, at Tennessee. It feels like so long ago now, given everything that's happened in the SEC. But, yeah, so I think coming off of that, you feel like they're trending in the right direction. Meanwhile, I don't think there's any doubt when you look at A&M and kind of the way they're trending. I told you, I was like, well, they just beat Arkansas. They just beat Miami. Those things happened not long ago, but for some reason, it just feels like a different team now. And I think, whether it's injury situation, the offense. So I don't know. I could understand the justification for keeping A&M ahead of Florida here, to be honest with you, but Whether that's the case after this week, I think that's probably the bigger question. So
Those two teams will play on November 5th, by the way.
yeah, so maybe they'll
So
be
if it's
close
still
together at that point, and that'll
yeah,
decide it.
if it's still a discussion, then we'll have that. Okay, number 8. Boy, how this team has fallen. The Arkansas Razorbacks got blown out by Alabama, although made that interesting going to the fourth quarter. Could not close. Arkansas just cannot defend. It's got a brutal schedule here on out. Feel like a lot of wind left Razorback Nation's sails this last weekend.
Yeah, again, you talk about another team heading in the wrong direction, and we talked about the schedule. Someone brought that up in a live stream not long ago. Someone was like, could Arkansas conceivably lose their next, I don't remember what was the next 4 games? Someone asked about that. We were like, oh, come on. It's probably not going to happen. But Chris, they lost to A&M. They lost to Bama. Now they got to go to Mississippi State. They got to go to BYU after that. Even the game at Auburn's looking tougher. As we said, there at this point, given this past week, if you're like an Arkansas fan, think about the games remaining on your schedule. Even like I said, at Auburn looks tougher. Liberty's not going to be, I don't think, a gimme. LSU, top 25 team now. Ole Miss, top 10 team. Even Missouri is playing better. So, like the rest of that schedule for Arkansas, and yeah, you talk about a team that defensively has got to find something quick, but that's not ideal heading into a matchup with a Mississippi State team that can put up a lot of points. So,
okay, before we get to the top half of our power rankings, there's some big games coming up in the SEC this week. To add some excitement, we are making some predictions in the Stakes app. That is STAKES. We want to hear from you guys if you agree or disagree. Go to playwithstakes.com/14. Sign up for Stakes. Place your predictions either with our calls or against them. If you use the invite code Southeastern14, when you sign up, you'll get a double welcome bonus. Free to play, free to join. You can win stuff. You can beat us and brag about it. What's not to like there? Have some fun, help our sponsor, and we'll see you in the Stakes app. Okay, number 7. This is another place where we had some debate. I would personally have this team higher. This team will be higher if it wins a home game on Saturday. That's LSU Tigers at 7. I would have LSU ahead of our number 6 team, which is Kentucky.
really?
I would also have LSU ahead of our number 5 team, which is Mississippi State, by virtue of its head-to-head win.
Yeah, that's true. I
But
didn't
that's
think
just
about
me.
that. That's a good point. I don't know. I'm sticking on the Kentucky train for now. I did have Kentucky ahead of LSU still in my personal ones, but like we said, we talk about trains going in the right direction. LSU is heading in that one, and you mentioned if they win this week against Tennessee, LSU's. I mean, Chris, I might jump LSU up to number 3 for me because I've got Tennessee at number 3 in my power. I may jump them all the way up there depending on how it rolls. But
I think you would have to.
I mean, it may not be out of the question. So no, it's a huge game, and certainly, like we said, I think for them to show the resiliency that they had to come back and win that game at Auburn. That I think told you a lot about this team. And I know everyone will say, "Oh, well, it's just Auburn. They've done this a lot. These blowing a lead and that kind of stuff." But I give a lot of credit to LSU for that because they were 17-0. Like they looked done. Like it was just Auburn had all the momentum, but LSU to battle back and do that. LSU easily one of the most improved teams in this conference since the start of the season. And absolutely, I'm not gonna fault you for moving them up that high. Like I said, I'm just kind of sticking with Kentucky head in my personal one. So.
Yeah, this was a tough sequence here. State at 5. I just think, and I separated. The State has got a bigger scoring margin against a tougher schedule. That LSU loss was disappointing, but other than that, Blake, State's brought it every week.
I guess that is my question here, and this is why rankings are hard, right? Because we've gotten to week 6. And I could certainly understand the justification. Well, how can you put Mississippi State LSU when LSU beat Mississippi State? But remember, these are composite staff rankings, not just Chris and I. These are beyond us, like everyone on our staff. Like these are all kind of combined. But I think it is kind of, it is the overall picture, I suppose, at this point. And but still, I mean, LSU's overall picture's got it's hard. Like we said, I mean, look, guys, you can take this group right here of what would you say, Chris? I mean, I think these three
These three
specifically,
teams are close.
Kentucky, Mississippi State, LSU. I think you could put them quite honestly in any order, and I could say, you know what, I get the argument, totally get it. I could move these around a lot. So I don't think there's a lot that separates these three to this point, even though, as we said, LSU does have a head-to-head win against Mississippi State. But I still think, in terms of where these teams are at, um, they're all teams that are certainly are going to land in one of these three spots. It's just which spots you put them in. I can see why there's a lot of variety in terms of our staff composite rankings.
Well, here's the other thing: when you get into this team beat this team, you will end up tying your knots,
Right,
your
because
rankings into a pretzel-like knot at some
Yeah.
point, and it's only going to get worse. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's what I would have done. Our staff disagreed. Okay, there was not any disagreement on the top four. Ole Miss at 4, big win over Kentucky. The Rebels unbeaten, albeit that schedule has been pretty suspect until last week. Tennessee at number 3. The Vols were off. Big game with LSU. Ole Miss should handle Vanderbilt pretty easily this weekend. Tennessee, if it beats LSU down in Baton Rouge, I don't know. I wonder if we will have a discussion to move Tennessee up at some point.
I was gonna say, yeah.
I think this is Tennessee's high water mark, but I'm not entirely sure, given the injury situations, given how hard Tennessee is to stop when it throws the ball, given some stuff we've seen out of Georgia lately. For now, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of debating to me that Ole Miss is 4, Tennessee is 3, but we could see some change here one way or the other next week.
Yeah, Ole Miss wins, Tennessee loses, Ole Miss moves up, takes that number 3 spot, unless something happens with Alabama or Georgia. We have to certainly factor that in because those two teams have, things going on as well, whether it's Bryce Young's injury or Georgia just not. I mean, let's say Georgia struggles to beat Auburn, right? Tennessee goes and wins at LSU. Then I think you're really looking at that and saying, do we move Tennessee up? But I think that's a big if. I'm so excited for this Tennessee LSU game because I think it's just going to be a lot of fun, just given the setup and again how both teams have been trending. And like I mentioned, I mean LSU could take this spot if they were to beat Tennessee. So yeah, a lot of fun in this group, but Ole Miss gets the big jump up because they certainly deserve it after beating Kentucky, and should have another winnable game this week against Vanderbilt. But yeah, this is quite a group here. And then there's those other two that's kind of fascinating where Alabama and Georgia are at as well right now.
Well, just as the pollsters did in some cases, we have made a change at 1 Alabama, 2 straight blowouts, moves back to the number 1 spot where it started the season. Georgia moves down to number 2 after 2 very unimpressive games in a row. Could change again, but Alabama is at this point looking like the better team, and I don't think there was a lot of debate on that this week.
Not surprised. I think pretty much everyone, or I think everyone did on our staff rankings, move Alabama up to 1 after that. And again, not surprised given what we saw from Georgia at Missouri and, kind of piggybacking off the Kent State game. So, yeah, I mean, I think the flip-flopping may continue, just kind of what you see from these teams, but I don't know. At this point, like we said, there may be a couple of those teams behind it. Of course, this is all dependent on if Alabama and Georgia lose a game, then you're really kind of looking at other things a little bit differently somewhere. But you at least feel like both of them will win this week. They're certainly favored to do so against A&M and Auburn, respectively. So, yeah, these are the top 2. They've been the top 2 all season, but a little flip-flop this week with Alabama going back to the top.
All right, we do our power rankings every week, so we'll be back with those again. We've got a live stream coming up Wednesday night. People have loved that show. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to watch all our previews. We're previewing every SEC game this week. He's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. Thanks to our sponsor, Steaks. Thanks for watching. Again, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything, and we'll see you again very soon.